Welcome to Fact or Freestyle.
We discover hidden secrets of BMX.
And now we're going to find out what's going on.
Let's see how far down this rabbit hole we go.
Needs a little bit of improvement. Well, there he is.
Hey, Happy New Year, guys.
Happy
How
New
to pull
Year.
over.
Happy New Year, Gare.
Hey, Happy New Year.
How you guys been? Good?
Yeah, it's been good.
Another day in the fun house, right?
Dude, it's been cold. What is it like
Yeah.
where you are?
30 degrees. This morning it was 16.
Ooh.
Yeah. This time of year, the heat, everybody's heating bills are through the roof just because no matter how well insulated your house is, it just eats right through it.
Gary, what state are you in?
New Jersey,
Okay.
right
okay.
outside of Philadelphia. I'm only about a half hour from Philly.
Nice. We're in Texas. I'm in Texas, not these guys. I'm in Texas, and we're having Arctic weather. We're at about 40 degrees right now, and it's just like it may as well be 5.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends in Florida, Nashville. They're like, this is unheard of. Like Mark Losey this morning put a photo up. They're getting more snow down in the Carolinas than we are up here in this region. It's crazy.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, Keith King is getting ready to take on Matthias Dandois', mountaintop snow video today.
Oh, is he?
Oh, jeez.
We need to send
it's
Mark
snowing.
Losey. We need to send Mark Losey a shovel, a snow shovel.
I did. I was being sarcastic when I said that too. I'm like, because they came from California to there and it never snows down there. So he's like, nah, it's not even worth shoveling. He said, like, tomorrow it could be 60 and it'll all be gone. So
Yeah, exactly. But I also just think about, his experience with making
Shovels.
lips for riders.
oh yeah.
You remember hearing the Volker, the P-lip story?
Yep. That little
Good for him to
king
have-
jump.
Yeah, it's good for him to have the right tools needed for the job. All right, guys. So welcome to 2022.
2. Yep.
2022 Factor Freestyle. We've kind of hit a reset, Gary. So we're on a quest, the 4 of us, and we'll have someone else join us later to really find and uncover the secrets of life.
And we believe.
Well, what stage you talking about? Beginning, middle, end. Where are we at?
Yeah, I guess
we actually believe that these broadly applicable life lessons were illustrated in stories, in tour buses, in tour bands.
Yeah, you got a lot of
We are
on the record,
convinced
off
of
the
this.
record stories. Definitely.
Yes.
and things that shaped us and altered our direction into I don't know, what about your story, Gary? I'd like to hear, when you finished riding, what was that transition like? What was like that next step? You were done?
Yeah, done in late 91. It was pretty much, they gave Joe Johnson and I the ultimatum of come out west or forget it. So I talked to Joe, and the logistically moving everything out to California, mostly Huntington Beach, it wasn't worth it at the time. It was right when the Gulf War was starting, because it was really starting to traveling back and forth. It was very expensive. And I remember prior to that, Joe and I were doing it a lot. Him leaving Boston, me leaving Philadelphia, always ending out in LAX together. I mean, it was nonstop in the 90s, 91. So that was my big decision. It's just like, it wasn't feasibly worth it financially. So Joe started college, I started college, ended up, getting a job like what I'm doing now in telecommunications, and that was pretty much the end of it. So Joe finished, graduated college, with an engineering degree and but that's what he's doing. So
Right. And then
it was
how
a shock though. It was a lot of decompressing after that because of the traveling tour and stuff. To all of a sudden you're like I had to
did we
look
all freeze?
my parents. What's that?
What?
I hear you. You there?
Dave is frozen.
Okay.
There you go.
I'm on borrowed Wi-Fi. My dad doesn't have Wi-Fi here, so I'm
Using your phone to tether.
no, I'm using a neighbor's Wi-Fi. But sorry, guys.
Sucking up bandwidth.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I had a half pipe in my backyard for at least a year after I stopped broading. My dad's like, you need to get rid of that. So we took it apart nail by nail, and somebody took it somewhere piece by piece and rebuilt it somewhere exact same way. Never rode it after it was rebuilt, but I heard it was rebuilt the exact same way.
Wow.
Wow.
Sucked, but what are you gonna do? But here's the other, like, the horrible thing about this too is, like, I was on my honeymoon when I got married, and it was right when the very first X Games started, like, televised. And I'm on my honeymoon with my wife. I'm looking at her. I'm looking at the TV. I'm going, yeah, I missed that by a couple years.
Did she?
But
So did she
it all
know?
worked out. Yes. Oh, yeah. She was there from the beginning when I was riding, traveling. It was tough to be in a relationship when you're, gone a couple weeks, home for a month, gone for a couple weeks. I mean, it was tough. So.
Not to mention the line of women, at the show asking for your hotel room.
That happened a lot to, like, especially with the other guys I travel with. It's like people, you hear these stories, but it's all true.
Don't you love how Gary says it happened to the other guys? Like the other guys, of course, Gary.
Yeah, that's called a diversion.
A very smooth diversion.
There's this one flat Bible. It said actual foot, or it's something like telling my girlfriend I go to Simple Session to ride, and the video is just of donuts and the little thing going in, putting the cream in the donuts.
Oh, Jesus.
And from what has brought to that's how Catfish got his baby, his blue-eyed Estonian baby. Like, I called him out on him, like, really? So this is Mad Dog's baby and you're taking public responsibility for it? And he's like, no, kid's name's Dracula. And
Oh, geez.
so I go, I'm like completely not believing this. And then I see a picture of the kid's eyes. And I go, oh my God, that really is Zach's son.
That's a
So
match.
years later, Nitro Circus comes to Dayton, and I drive out there. Zach, gets me, and he's like, hey, you can hang out here, with my family. And I had stayed over his house, so I kind of knew, his brother, but it had been like 20, 30 years. So then up walks this. Imagine Zach's girlfriend. Like, imagine any of the girlfriends on Nitro Circus. One of them walks up with this little kid, and the kid is walking through these stands like he owns those stands. And I was like, Exhibit B, that's Zach's kid. And he comes up, and I say hello to her, and I go, oh, is this Dracula? And she goes, Grayson.
Grayson.
I was like,
she said what?
Grayson. His real name the kid's name is Grayson, but for years Zach said his kid's name was Dracula. And
wow.
So I asked his baby mama if, like, this is Dracula.
This is
She says, Grayson.
She's probably shaking her head going, wait till I see Zach. Wait till I see him. I'm just going to punch him in the head.
Sorry to derail, but that story rang very true.
Yes. Okay, so I think, I found a Rob Lowe quote, Joe, that I wanted to share, because Rob Lowe seems to come up with some really like spot on. I don't know. I just stumble upon these, and I think it's perfect.
We're trying to pin. We're trying to pin to an even bigger celebrity than Dave, and so we're gonna harvest everything from Rob Lowe, and we're gonna try to ride that coattail.
Sounds like a plan.
He's got some pretty profound.
I'm sorry for interrupting. Go ahead. I'm very excited.
He's got some pretty profound insights, and I think it ties into where we're going with this show, which is, okay, we want to know, because I still want to ask Gary more about like what that transition was like and how it's changed the world. Instead of him going to Huntington Beach, the world that we don't know as much about in his career. We'll get back to that, but
Yes.
Because I feel like there's more to that story, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that have gained huge value in it. But here's Rob. Here's what Rob has to say. Whatever we are, whatever we make ourselves, is all we really have. And that, in its profound simplicity, is the meaning of life.
It's about right. You're a product of your environment. So you make whatever you possibly can do the best for your surroundings, your family, your friends, and make it happen. He's dead on.
Yeah, and the simplicity of it, I like that. Like, you don't have to really conquer the world.
No.
But if you, in your environment, in your direct environment, so you have like yourself, and then you have generally your closest relationship, and then your family, then your friends, and then your community, and it goes that rippled out. But it all starts, it's definitely a Buddhist, idea too. Like, the more that you actually, reach the place of nirvana in yourself, that affects your environment, and then it ripples out. So with that, Gary, tell us about how your career went, and like what do people say about Gary in your career?
Well, I actually, like, my coworkers that I've been with for years and years, they never really knew that I rode. I kind of kept that on the DL.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There would be a couple people, because I work with people over in Europe, California, and I'm working with them, and then like, hey, they'll Google me or something, like, hey, are you the guy who rides bikes? And I'm like, yeah, I used to do that, blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, there's a bunch of videos online I see, and that you get the trickle down effect depending on what part of the country or people I'm working with. So that kind of creeps out like that. But most of the time, I really don't say much, you know what I mean? Other than, I'll see somebody will say something, and I'll just like, yeah, that was me. It was a great hobby then. But I don't like try to say I still do it, which I still do, which is great. Keeps me in shape and keeps the blood flowing. But other than that, I just keep it really low key.
How about an experience that you had as a rider, traveling, or I don't know, like the first time that you did your first big show, or landing your first sponsor, that experience then transferred over into something that you're doing in your career now?
I'll tell you right now, when I started off with Magoo, I learned tons from him, like being punctual, on time, watching him deal with the customers at the bike shop, and how, like, if Dave, you would go to you would have a rain delay, then you're kind of stuck there signing autographs, which is good. But every time that we went to a show, I don't ever remember being late. Like, he was so punctual, and that's the way I've been brought up my whole life, is even my work. I'm never late. Everything I do, it's very calculated to the point, like what Magoo was showing me when we were traveling. And that was less the technology we had then compared to now. Like, even like how many people can read a map? I know, Dave, you and I can read a map in a minute. Those old school maps.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
a minute, we could probably figure anywhere out. Some people you show my niece and nephew, like, what the hell is that? You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, just that took a like traveling and life experience on the road, like fixing tires, breakdowns, you know, just being stuck. And, you know, that takes that to the next level of your life, you know, like as in, well, I learned a lot when I was young to make these things as I get older a little easier to deal with for sure, especially dealing with people. There's no doubt the amount of people that you run into, you're on tour, good guys, bad guys, you take that right to the like what you're doing nowadays, you know. There's every crowd that you go to, there's good people and bad people. It's just part of life, you know, just you just know how to deal with them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I don't know, other experiences as younger people that might have been handed a little bit easier road or not as much experience. I think travel is like huge because you run into different cultures, different circumstances, and like you said, problems that you have to, solve. And all of those things you don't even realize it at the time is so valuable because then later
Mm-hmm.
you can default back to that, and it's kind of known. You just kind of know how to do it and what to take on and how to get it, get it worked out in the most expedient way.
When I
That's
was on
why, Ray.
Lollapalooza, I could
Okay.
always tell whose mother breastfed them for too long.
Yeah, there are a lot of them are still out there.
Oh, I have to say, we see that with the preschool, and it's amazing. And we have a whole, they have a form that they fill out, but we don't even have to read it. We just know that the child that, I mean, everyone has their own view and opinion, and I'm not here to say,
Right.
One's better than the other, but I see that the children that are breastfeeding when they're, past 2 on to 3, even 4-year-olds, that they emotionally need a lot more support.
Coddling.
They're not detached.
Resilient. They're not
Yeah.
resilient.
And so I don't know. I feel like, and going back to like the whole writing scene. So like Gary, you made that decision and then you pulled yourself out, and then
So Gary, you switched careers. You got into telecommunications, which is incredibly complicated. It's complex. It's not complicated.
Very complex and complicated.
Oh, it is complicated as well. Oh yeah, of course it is. Of course it is. So can you tell us a story about one of the times that you were troubleshooting, or you were debugging, or you were engineering, and you got absolutely stuck, or your team got stuck, or somebody else got stuck and they handed it to you? Can you tell us one of those stories that you believe or is somehow linked to the resilience that you developed on the road with guys like Magoo?
I have to think about that one for a second, because that's my job every day is troubleshooting, for working, because I work with big accounts like Facebook, Vanguard, Google. So I'm in their networks all the time. So depending on where their problem is, in what part of the country you're working with on the phone or physically on site in front of the equipment, it's every situation's different. So, but just going back to the Magoo thing, I just how everything was so even tidy and neat. You know what I mean? Everything, like, I go into these like clean rooms / data centers. I mean, you can eat off the floor, so you have to take your worth ethic as in being very proper, clean. You don't leave messes. Everything's got to be tagged, labeled. Even when you jump into the equipment, you have to have the right things. And there's other things I can't talk about, but the way I saw Magoo interact with everything that he did on tour, I think that's still, like, I still want to thank him a million times for like helping me out to figure out these things. Like, now makes life a little easier. A lot of kids like Dave, like you don't get these experience by traveling, finances, money and stuff. They don't teach you that shit in school. You learn that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you're on the road, you just don't go, they give you per diem, but you don't go spending it one meal. You learn how to, you know, take your little bit of food money, you know, that you get and then schlep a little bit away, eat a little bit. A lot of times when we were on tour, for months, we would save tons of money because we would go to people's houses. They'd go, hey, come over for a barbecue, come over for dinner. Hey, we'll take you out to dinner. You would take advantage of that, even though you didn't have time, but that's what put more money in your pocket, you know, down the road for sure. So everything like that, it's definitely helped down the road for sure.
Joe, I think there's an interesting point that Gary made. When we do these online contests, I think that we should bring back some form of, maybe not uniforms, but they're being judged on neatness. Because this is the quality that
we
Gary
could do a bike check ahead of time.
It could be a bike check,
And
and it could be
bike
like,
check.
you know what, because there used to be AFA would actually had you judged on appearance.
Yeah. I mean, some of these great riders, their bikes are immaculate. You know what I mean? Like Logan Martin, some of these bikes are just pristine. And then you see some of these other kids who can ride just as good and their bikes are just, you know, I'm not, you know, not profiling or judging, but they look like little ghetto bikes. They're still talented, but you look at the guys with the good bikes and that all that stuff, you're like, damn, that's the way it used to be, you know, growing up.
Well, and there's value in it. And that's where we're kind of digging deeper to find, because what you're saying is that that's transformed into your other areas of your life now.
Definitely.
For sure.
Definitely being not anal, but just very, like, I don't know, just everything's in place, you know, it makes life easier when you have everything is where you want it, need it, you know, just being organized, period. So,
Well, Wilkerson was the guy for me. And I remember him, like, Brian used to ride without socks sometimes. And he would wear slip-on Vans and no
Yep.
socks. And Wilkerson was like, and he's doing big 10-foot airs, you know, like, and Wilkerson was like, dude, we do a safety part of the show. You got to wear socks. You know?
Yeah, same with us. Yeah, I remember doing that too. And that, like me, because when I was traveling, I was underage for the longest time. I wore my safety stuff because I didn't want to hear the shit from my parents. Like, why weren't you wearing your stuff? You
Right.
deserve it. You know, that kind of nonsense.
Yeah. I remember one time Wilkerson was giving Brian a hard time because he had a Vans t-shirt on underneath his jersey, and it was a vented jersey. So you could see the Vans logo. And Wilkerson was like, so like his standard was really high. He was like, dude, you can see the Vans. It was either Life's a Beach or Vans. It was something that even
Right.
though sponsor, it didn't look, you know, in Ron's eye, professional. Like he had this professional bar. And I know that I learned that, you know, not necessarily like he sat down and said, okay, look, guys, this is how but it was just over the time and over these experiences, we gained that kind of knowledge or wisdom.
Dave, when I was a young lad before I got sponsored and we saw your group on tour, you guys were like dead on. Your uniforms were great. Everything. Like we go to different shows around New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and everything, every show that we ever saw, exactly perfect. Like what you're talking about. And you would see that and go, that's what I want to do, you know? And then when I ended up getting on CW, it was the exact same thing. You had to do, you know, tit for tat. It was amazing.
And then the backstory though, Gary, just so you know what was happening, is that when we would have, you know, 2 or sometimes 3 shows in a day, and we're back east and the humidity is just horrific, and we only had so many amounts of jerseys and leathers,
Yeah.
we would hang them up in the trailer to try to dry. Well, they would never dry. And so we
just mold
like deodorant and spray them down with deodorant.
Yeah.
And put these wet jerseys back on and leathers to go out to do the second show. And it was brutal. It was so bad, but you had to do it. you know.
Yeah,
'Cause we're not
I
gonna
remember
ride
that.
in-
I remember doing the same thing on tour, and I was so young then. I don't even think I was sweating or smelled then. It was mostly Diz and Seppi that smelled the most. When you're 90 pounds in like soaking wet, you're not stinking then.
That's so funny. So Joe, I think Gary might be a candidate. I don't know if you're feeling what I'm feeling, but what you want to present this?
So Gary,
idea to
we
Gary?
would. So we have this idea. We have this idea that we think that there are some folks out there who could be tremendous characters in this quasi reality show that we are putting together. And in order to illustrate the points, the subtle points that we're carving out here, they have to be amplified. And so it's one thing for someone to very subtly tell a story, because people who know how to listen for that will hear it and they'll get it. But those aren't the types of people we need that we're creating this content for. We're creating this content for people who like the kind of stories that we have been telling, and now we're going to switch it up and give them a truth pill. Like we're going to force the red pill from the Matrix on them. But we have to amplify that. And so we think that you would be a great candidate to amplify a challenge in your life as you experienced it, and then to talk it through as though we're reliving it,
Right.
and then come to a realization. And so we have three tests that we think will really bring this out. And the first one, Dave.
Well, and it's not really right or wrong, just to make sure we're clear here.
It's
a test.
They're
that
like
you're gonna
rehearsals.
fail.
Not
Okay.
Yeah, they're drills. They're drills is
It's
what
a-
they are. I said test, but I
It's a-
meant drills.
Yeah, it's a skill set that we can kind of qualify based on the answer. Correct, Joe? Is that kind of where we're going with that? Because each
Yes,
question,
it's a drill, an exercise, a diagnostic.
yeah,
absolutely.
diagnostic to kind of give us, okay. So
So the first one.
the first one, Gary, when you have a tube of toothpaste and you're just about done with it, are you the kind of individual that like will roll it in a certain technique, or you have some special
clip. I have a
you-
clip that goes on the bottom of it, and you roll the clip and it pushes it right up. Done.
Okay, so see, Joe, this is the kind of thing that I'm talking about. When someone has that kind of attention on a very specific, because some people will just kind of like, they'll use the tube and they'll squeeze it, and then it's like, oh God, I can't get the rest of it out, and they just huck it. And there's others that spend a specific technique
Mhm.
to
No waste.
no waste, yeah, no waste, but efficient. Like you're not gonna do something silly with it. Okay, that's good. So Joe, I think that's a really great answer. I like that answer. Joe, you want to go with number 2, which we already touched on.
Our 6-year-old daughter is familiar with the thing on her tooth or on her toothpaste too. She has one for hers too, so she's learning young.
Oh, see, perfect. Role model. He's already a role model, Joe. I mean, okay.
Literally a role model.
Yeah,
Okay.
rolling it.
Okay, Joe.
Oh, Jim has sound effects. This is so great.
Oh, that's good. That was you, Jim. That's great. That
He's been
reminds me-
quiet down there.
He's in a very zen state of mind. He's just kind of
see
taking
that.
it on.
I definitely have some
My leg-
questions, but I don't want to bust the flow. You guys
Okay.
are rolling.
Yeah, let's just roll with this, and then we're going to have someone else join in just a minute. So go ahead, and Joe. What do you got for the next question for Gary?
Number 2, I forgot. So Dave, can you remind me briefly about number 2?
I'll give you a hint, because I kind of like to have you use your brain to figure it out, so I don't just give it to you. I talked
Okay, so this is the riddle. This is the riddle to get into the magical cave that contains the next test. Drill.
The riddle is, we spoke about this I specifically
Oh,
spoke about this
come on,
article.
I know this. I came up with number 2.
Exactly.
I just
That's why you
forgot. Just prompt
remember
me.
it.
It was in the week, like Dave texted me like yesterday morning. He's like, "When can we talk?" And I'm like, "I have a break in my calendar because I do technology advisory, so I had clients all day, but I had 30 minutes, thank God, for lunch.
Yeah.
And so I did this over lunch, but I didn't write it down. So Dave, I would like
And I
to
wrote it down. I have all my notes.
request the next hint. What's the next hint, Dave? It
Oh, wait,
can't just
I
be
already
that we
gave-
talked about it.
I thought you said you
Number
knew.
2, I would like another hint, please.
Another hint. Okay, I spoke about it specifically with the rider. I talked about Wilkerson giving him a difficult time about this. It was regarding safety.
Keep going.
It's an article of clothing. You don't wear them on your hands.
Your cup.
Not a cup. I never wore a cup. Did you wear a cup, Gary?
No,
Oh,
only when I
this
played-
is okay.
Only when I played ice hockey.
Same here. I played ice hockey as well, and that's exactly it. Okay.
Okay.
So Joe, do you have
Socks.
this? Thank you.
Socks. Okay, so Gary, we want to hear how do you deal with a sock that has developed a hole?
But that's funny because I have 2 dogs. So when I get a sock that has a hole in it, I will put a tennis ball in that sock, and now it's a new dog toy for at least a week until he shreds the sock and the tennis ball. So the sock will have an extended life, probably another week or so, and then it gets thrown in the rubbish.
Wow. Man, did you expect that answer, Joe? That is, I mean, repurpose.
We knew it would be we knew whatever would come out would be impressive and
Exactly.
something that we would never have estimated. And this
He's
is
taking a
this is gold.
sock with a hole in it, and he's giving more joy with that holy sock.
Mm-hmm. You know what's weird is I don't know what it might be my dogs or other dogs, but for some reason maybe it's because it's the stinky smell of your feet or the washing, the detergent. But the sock is like with the tennis ball is like a tug of war thing. They love it.
That's interesting. But however, does that cause any problems with your other socks that don't have holes? Do your dogs know once the tennis ball's in?
Nah, because if I lose one, I'll just put the other one aside because I know eventually the one's gonna end up like there's gonna be another hole in it. So it kind of like I keep one, get rid of one. As the other one gets another hole, I'll take the spare one of that one and add another pair. So done. It's not
So
like just because you have a hole in one socket, it doesn't mean you throw the pair away.
No,
You kind of like
exactly.
circulate the one around. So
Wow.
I mean, come on, dude. I can talk to Gary at any point in my
whoa,
life.
Rainbow, what's up, brother?
Having me on with Gary is bad news because Gary won't get a word, and I apologize already.
Well, that's
Ray,
why.
Ray, real quick, Ray, I want to thank you for that snowboard box. I'm sending it out on
Oh.
Monday.
That worked
Listen to
out
this,
nice,
guys.
didn't it?
Listen to this. I sold a 1987 Sim snowboard, never used. It's called an FE 1600 out of the box. It was
Wow.
one of the
He won it.
first.
He
Yeah.
he won it at a local street contest when he was a little kid, basically, and just never used it. So he's selling things that he won in the 80s.
It's
Wow.
going to a snowboard museum. How awesome is that?
Wait a second. It is.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Oh, yeah. Gary probably has a
I-
picture of it. He can send it to you one of these days.
I got a story related to this. So you guys know that Scott Powell is my mentor. So there was this one time, this kid, there was this kid riding with us, and he was doing like backwards hitchhikers. Very strange kid. He had a kickstand. No lie.
What?
Yeah,
Backwards
he had a
hitchhiker's
kickstand. His name was Vince. Very weird dude. Well, Marty Clark came down for a 4th of July jam that we had at the legendary JFK Park. And this kid was there, and Marty was like horrified. So I'm up in Cleveland month or so later, and Marty goes, Joe, give this to Vince. And he hands me a frame. It's a Scott Powell individual frame. So I take it home, and Vince would come out once in a blue moon. That was the last time I had ever seen Vince, but I carried this individual frame around through the different Terradomes. Well, by the time it got to Terradome 3, I was carrying this thing for like 5-6 years. And you can't just carry stuff. I can't just carry stuff around, no matter what. I can't just carry stuff around. So I decide to list it on eBay. But here's my trick. This is a frame that no one can ride anymore because the bottom bracket and the head tube was before whatever now. And I figured, you know what? No one's gonna, let's just see if I can sell this thing. So I list it on eBay, and I sell it. And it turns out it's a guy who is he works at an art school, or works at a university. He's a professor of photography. And what he says was, look, I bought it because of the story you wrote. And so the story that I wrote, I dramatized how I got it. But I used the template of Christopher Walken's soliloquy in Pulp Fiction about the watch.
Oh yeah.
And that
You had that
sold
frame up for your
Scott
ass.
Powell.
Dave, to say how sensitive you are these days.
Well,
No.
what I
Anybody?
said was
Dave?
what I
Did
said
Dave
was what I
I missed
said
that.
was
I missed that, Ray.
what I said was I carried this uncomfortable hunk of metal in the Terradome for 6 years. So instead of saying that I put the frame in my ass, I said I carried it in the Terradome. And it was all like this was the first frame made by gurus. Before then, everybody used, general frames or some shit like that. But yeah, that paid off. So good for you, Gary, that you got that properly into a museum.
He got it into the right hand, which is pretty good.
1987, I've been holding on to that
Yep.
thing.
Damn.
Yep.
Hey,
Yep.
so Joe, let's stay on track, because Gary, I mean, Ray, just to give you a little background, we're in a process of asking a series of questions to Gary to qualify, and
We think Gary's going to be an excellent, I'll run this down. So Ray, we think that Gary's going to be an excellent character addition to the show. However, in this year, we are asking everyone to caricature the challenges that they've had in life and tell us the story as though they are going through it. And as we talk through the wisdom that they, whatever that moment was that they learned from, that is the conclusion that the character comes from. So we're asking people to relive their learning in real time,
Right.
in like 4 or 5 minutes, but they have to exaggerate it because we're trying to reach an audience that
Right.
is not subtle gurus.
Right.
they have to spice it up a bit. I mean, like any story,
Yeah.
having a good little storyline and the life lesson behind it. Okay, so the third question, Joe, do you want to do the third question? Do you remember the third question?
I do not remember the third question, but let's go
Okay.
tit for tat, and you're up next.
So, Gary, this is really the deciding factor for us. Are you prepared for personal growth?
What are
Always.
you guys talking about?
Always.
Personal
And what-
growth.
As in like financial stuff, for sure.
Sure. We didn't say,
Oh,
we didn't, whatever that looks
Financial
like. for you.
Yeah, is it personal growth as in like being, there's a lot of back talk.
I'm sorry.
Uh-oh.
It sounds like
Oh,
Jim
yeah,
is
I hear that.
talking with his.
Is that Gary or is that who's
I
that
think
coming
it's-
through?
Hey,
Joe or
shh, everyone
Gary?
be quiet. Shh.
I think it was.
Everything
There
good,
he
Jim?
is.
Was that the DoorDash?
Oh shoot! I hit mute and it didn't mute. Can
Oh
you hear
wait,
me
it's
now?
somebody else. They like throwing people in here. Let's see who
No.
this is.
This is interesting. So somebody just brought me a bunch of old pictures. This is actually me like way back in the day. So I built this little like ramp that actually fit in my truck, and I would just take it out in session. And I built a grind box also, and I would just like drive around and just set up and ride wherever. This was pre-Flatland. I started out as a really shitty street rider. Yeah.
Who didn't?
Anyways,
Wait a
continue.
second. That sounds really cool because you could like shoot video of that and no one would know that you're riding on your own car.
Yeah.
True.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm sorry. So, sorry, Dave,
Okay,
but
Jim, we were at the question that was like the key question, Jim. And the
Personal
timing.
growth.
Personal growth.
Oh.
Are you prepared,
That
Gary?
sounds like an adult film, but anyway.
Personal growth. And if so, it sounds like yes, you are, because you answered that yes, and you were kind of leaning towards, the financial aspect, which sure, that could be one of them.
Also, you could personal growth as you could set goals for yourself as like, hey, I want to try to ride a little bit more, or hey, I want to spend more quality time with my friends and family. There's always things like that. There's
Yeah.
that kind of growth. Some people just stay stagnant for a long time. So they just want to get outside their little box and maybe, do something, like it's going to make their lives a little bit better or, more exciting, I guess.
Yeah.
Would
so
that be
how
part of the personal growth?
Yeah, how that would look. I mean, we could formulate this however we want, but how that could look, I think that's some really great examples. So let's say it was a personal growth about riding more. Then you could kind of just do a little check-in, like, okay, so last week we talked about I wanted to do more riding, so this is my update, and I did
Yeah.
X amount of riding, this many skate parks, this or whatever that looks like. But maybe tell us about a time that you've already touched upon it, but Ray wasn't on the call at that point. But when you talked about, all the growth that you did with Magoo's influence, but is there another good story that you can think of?
So
that
Ray can vouch for this, but Ray, I was telling them how when I was traveling with Magoo, how he pretty much was very punctual, on time, very courteous to like people talking. Like Ray always tells everybody, Gary's the best person in the world to travel with, is because I learned everything from traveling with him. I take it to my friends and family, how to travel, be punctual, on time, pay attention to certain things, different areas of the world where you're traveling to and from, what to bring, not to bring. And I think that all comes into everyday life situations too. He definitely helped on that. Tell him, Ray, aren't I a good traveler?
Gary is the great, like if you're going anywhere and if you're like, all right, well, we have to go wherever, like just say we're going to Woodward for the weekend. If Gary goes, you don't have to worry about anything because he is like, if you get a flat, he's got it handled. If you have to call somebody to help fix the flat, he's got it handled. When you go, if they don't take this credit card, he'll have a different credit card. When you get to the room, if the room smells, Gary has a plug-in to put in, and he also has an extra light bulb. Like Gary will carry a light bulb with him because it may, like at Woodward, the light may go out, and there's nobody at Woodward there's no maintenance guy at Woodward.
Yeah.
He has a flashlight next to his bed in case the power goes out. You'll be sitting back going
I'm the guy at the
man,
airport with a power strip on the floor.
Yeah. So Gary's got like all the stuff. Like Gary's very good to travel with because he doesn't Gary would never go on a trip and be like, oh, I forgot that. He's never said that. He's never said,
No
oh wait, I
way.
forgot to pack my something. Yeah. So that kind of stuff. So that's something that Gary learned early on, which is surprising because when Gary was younger, he was a terrorist. He was up to
Boys
a lot
will
of
be
mischief.
boys.
Yeah, Gary was big on some mischief stuff. Like I've talked to my son about some of my mischief that was basically stuff that I did with Gary when we were kids. And he was just like, why would you do that? Like, why did you do stuff like that? I'm like, well, when you're a kid, you don't really think of the outcome. You just want to do silly stuff, dangerous stuff, mean stuff, bad stuff to show off to your friends, to show like, hey, look, I can do that. And that's kind of like what freestyle is. Like, you'd be riding, like we'd ride at the mall, and when somebody would be like, hey, why don't you guys get a car?
Get a car,
and then like Gary or Scott or Wally would do like a 180 rollout, and they'd be going backwards while they're rolling backwards, and everyone's yelling at him like, hey, you guys are dorks. And then he'd be like shooting the finger while he's rolling backwards. Then he'd roll out of it, and everybody would be like, wow, we just like were messing with that kid. But he just totally did a trick and told us to go F ourselves, and stuff like that was funny. So, but
it'd be funny. Girls would be like, why don't you guys
Yeah.
grow up and get cars? And we'd look over there at our fancy cars and go, mean cars like that?
yeah, it was fun. Yeah, it was definitely fun getting a car and then being able to ride, and then be like, wait, why don't you guys get a car? And then we just like throw our bikes in the back and take off.
Yeah, you had your Mustang and stuff. I mean, we definitely had some great cars back then growing up.
Yeah.
Hey, Gary, did you used to play that game with a rock? I can't remember what they called it.
Swap
rock.
Swap rock. Yeah.
Yeah, you can blame Dennis
that?
for that. McCoy.
McCoy. That's who came to mind. Yeah. McCoy was like, he was definitely into that game, and it would break spokes and like.
Folks, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Wait a second. What is swap rock?
Oh God.
I'll explain it. So swap rock, Gary, like a lot of things Gary took up, whether it was BMX related or other, he became an expert within the first 8 seconds of it. That's one thing Gary could always wind. Like you could hand Gary a gun and he never fired a gun, and he'd be like, all right, you want to try and hit that target 250 yards from here, and Gary would shoot it twice and get them both in. Just stuff like that. He's just always doing goofy stuff like that. But so swap rock is people like by like people would have like those big river rocks that would be out right. They'd be at the King of Prussia Mall. Like everybody had all these
round
like
rocks about the size of tennis balls,
and you can ride
Flat?
up to it. Some are flat, some are round. Like they're more round. They're almost like a baseball or a softball.
Yeah.
But when you ride up to it, you kind of lift up the front wheel a little bit, and then you just turn your wheel, and it's like a slingshot.
I know that.
Yeah.
I know that.
So
I know that game.
So if you combine going 10 miles an hour and then you crank the wheel, Gary was able to, like, Gary could do that and like launch a bottle or a bike or
through a windshield
or a rock like over a car into a car windshield, like. And so we'd have a lot of people that would come to King of Prussia and ride. Like they'd go, oh, Gary has a ramp. So they'd ride the ramp a little bit. And they're like, all right, we're going to go to the mall. And then there'd be like 10 of us riding around the mall. There'd be like these 3 guys we never met before. And there'd be a rock. And Gary would just ride up and boom, hit the rock and hit a kid right in the spokes. And they're like, dude, what was that? Or hit the frame. And then we would just be bored and we would play swap rock. You just have like 4 rocks in a parking lot and you just ride up and then,
you're also
and then
like,
swap them.
Swap rock's almost like the no touch game, like, or foot down. So you're pretty much doing foot down and swap rock at the same time. That's what we would do. So even like right now, I'll ride with my daughter on a bike ride. And if there's like a bottle or some debris on the sidewalk or a stick, I could just ride right along and just get it out of the way, like airlift it to wherever I need to go.
Wherever it's got to
Right
go.
side or left side, yeah. And she's like, how do you do that? I'm like, we'll get there soon.
In due time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the best one that Gary ever did was when we were kids, we worked for a scalper in King of Prussia. And this guy would give us like $400 and we'd have to sleep out at the King of Prussia Mall for like 2 days. And then we'd be the first one in line and we'd buy like our Bon Jovi tickets, then give them to the guy. So all these derelicts would be waiting there, but we'd always get there first. And it kind of worked out for us because we would just park there with our bikes and we'd ride all day and we'd still be like waiting in line. And then we'd make like $400 for like 2 days. And he was giving us all this shit. And he put this big gulp right on the ground and then was laying there and sleeping. Now this is like before cell phones and stuff. We went to
Or
a
surveillance
restaurant
cameras.
called Gary. Yeah. We're like, hey, is Gary there? And his mom's like, yeah, he's outside riding his ramp. We have to talk to him. It's an emergency. We get Gary on the phone. We're like, Gary, you know where we are? Like, you know where we're set up? Yeah. Ride by. You're going to know what to do. That's all we said. We hung up, right? About 10 minutes later, Gary and this other guy, Brian, come flying down. Gary does a quick little drive-by, sees the setup, and I already have tears pouring down my face because I'm like, you know this is happening. Now, this was a guy who was giving us all this shit for a day and a half. And his big gulp's like 8 inches from his face. And Gary just comes flying up, boom, and hits it. And it was like a concussion bomb hitting this guy. And the dude got up and went nuts. And we laughed for like 10 hours, man. But that's where Swap Rock comes in good.
He got the Hawaii 5-0 wave of
Hawaii
soda
5-0.
right all over him.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But that kind of stuff happened daily. Like, I can't believe that in King of Prussia, like, we were even allowed to still live here. Because at like age like 14, 15, 16, even 17, all we did was just nonsense. It was ridiculous. Like, everybody must have hated us. But
okay,
what do you do, man?
So Gary, I just want to like sum up because that was amazing. Like everything that you answered, and I think your character has definitely been formulated, and we would like to invite you as far as a regular guest. Or
thank you, appreciate it.
You're not a guest anymore. You're regular on the show, and we'll
cast member.
Yeah, cast member. Yeah, you've been casted. But we have one last final thing that we have to cover, which is essential because this show has profound effects on you, and I'm subject to this, and I think we all probably have. But sometimes you're going to get down this road, and you're going to want to like escape. You're going to want to have some kind of way out. So we have decided to implement a safe word. So you have to come up with a safe word that if there's a topic that comes up, a story, it starts to go too far, and without having to, make a big deal about it, you can simply say whatever this word is. It's got.
I have one.
Okay.
We use it with our daughter all the time. Bub. Like if she's getting ready to do something dumb, and we're like, whoa. Instead of like saying, we go bub, and then she'll stop what she's doing. She'll freeze. Yeah, bub. That's a bub moment.
Perfect. Okay, so everyone that's on this call right now realizes
my parents gave me no such tool. My parents gave me no
neither
such
did I.
word.
That is.
I wish I'm wondering now if I would have wished to have had a bub rule, or if my parents would abuse it. So Gary, where did you come up with the idea for the bub rule?
My wife and I decided to come up with it rather than just like yelling like no, stop, because sometimes that like kind of startles you and you end up going the wrong way or doing the wrong thing. Like we live along the water where our house is, and it's cold, there's ice, there's water, and like our daughter was sled riding and she wanted to go on the one side of the property and go sledding. I'm like, that's a big bub moment over there. Just go to the other side of the property. And she knew what we were talking about. That's danger and it's bad. So stop and then go the other way. So.
That's great.
That's where we got it
what
from.
is so Gary, what is the word that you use with Ray? Do you use Bubba with Ray as well?
No, it's a
No.
free for all. It's like, who gives a shit towards each other?
Yeah.
Okay.
We've
Like,
been
yeah.
friends for so long. We could say or do anything to each other, and it's like it is what it is.
Yeah.
These guys knew how horrible our mom jokes were toward each other, like it
Oh,
was
we
so
had-
bad where we just had to
we
like,
had
all right,
mom
we got to
jokes
stop this.
that were so bad where people would walk away. Like, we're like, how can you say that? Like, how can you do that? And then,
Oh, it was
unfortunately, my
bad.
mom. The only thing that stopped it was my mom passed away in the middle of
Yeah.
it, and I'm like, dude, we can't keep doing mom jokes. My mom died,
Oh,
and
my
so we're like, all
God.
right. And but they were really bad. It got to the point
Yeah, they
where,
were. They're
like,
it's not
I
they were
got
bad.
up.
It was so funny. It was a fucking hilarious.
I think the one time we were with a bunch of we were with Woody Itzen and Blyther and maybe like Rob Nolly and that whole crew, and we got up at we were doing karaoke, and and the shirt I wore, it said my other ride is your mom, and I got up and I sang, instead of easy like Sunday morning, I sang easy like Gary's mom. And I just like made it up as I went along, and it was spectacular. And like the people that were there, some were like laughing and some were like really offended. They were like, that's really mean what you're saying. So yeah.
And Gary,
We can get out of control.
You loved it.
Oh
funny.
my God, it was hilarious. Never got offended, never got mad.
Yeah,
Because
like
it was always I was gonna get him back eventually. You know what I mean?
yeah, and it, like
it's all about timing.
you could never go too far. You could never go too far. Like, you could say the
Yeah.
raunchiest, worst stuff, and then we're just like, all right, then I'll get you in about 3
Yeah.
minutes when we think of something else.
But the
Exactly.
raunchy
Yeah.
stuff isn't like the really raunchy stuff isn't always the funniest stuff. That's like
No.
that's like the
Right.
check and balance.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And to have that, I mean, especially that people get offended by it and they don't even realize that you guys are just getting closer and closer. The further that you push the envelope, the closer
And
you
here-
are.
And the thing is, Gary and I would never do it if it was like, say Gary and I were on like an hour car ride going somewhere. We wouldn't do one mom joke. But if we had an audience,
No.
then the
Yes.
mom jokes would
It would
flow.
never stop.
You got to have an audience. We would never do it to each other because it's not. We're done
funny,
with
like,
each
whatever.
other. You know what I mean? It's not funny.
Right.
But if we got like 3 dudes from out of town and someone's like, oh my God, like, I don't know if we can do it. That thing's way too wet. We're like, not as wet as Gary's mom, dude. Like, come on. And they'd be like, what did you just say? And then Gary would be like, oh yeah, well, your mom
Remember-
this and that. Blah, blah, blah.
So when the X Games were in town, like all the San Francisco guys were in, it was nonstop for a week
Oh, yeah.
of that shit. And those guys were just like Maurice,
They were dying.
Oscar. They just couldn't
They couldn't
never
take it
ending.
anymore. They were just like, you guys got to stop, man. That was bad stuff back then.
It's
Good
awesome when
times,
dudes
man.
come
Good
to your
times.
town. It's awesome when dudes come to your town. And you're
Yes.
just
Oh
like,
yeah.
This is how we do it around here.
Here's how we do it. Yeah. And we did it
Right.
like when we were kids. We did it with Martin Appario. Like, Martin came here to do a show not too far from our house, and he was going to be here for like 2 days. So we just got Martin, and Martin was like, it was at like the peak of like Martin being Martin, and we just like took him to we had Carlo Griggs with us also, and we just took him. It was like a Friday night, and it was like 9 o'clock. We're like, all right, let's go. We're going around the mall, and we got like a big old chase and almost got in a fight. And Martin's like, is this what you guys do? We're like, hell yeah, it's what we do every night, man. Like,
This
every
ain't the
time,
block,
every
buddy.
Friday.
This ain't the block. That's
Yeah.
what I would say.
So yeah,
This
we did
ain't
a lot
what-
of stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, Joe, I'm sold. I think we're gonna take a vote. Jim, what do you think? Is Gary in?
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%.
You give him a yes?
Yes.
Okay,
2 thumbs up.
it's definitely a yes for me. Joe?
Yes.
Okay, he's in. He's on to the golden ticket. No, what do they do at the American's Got Talent?
So now
He's on to the live show.
So now we have to work out your storyline, your backstory. So Gary, I wrote some examples of how we can work this out. Well,
Okay.
your storyline will be yours, but we're going to talk through it today. And I'm going to give you an example of how Dave and I have done this in the past. Okay, how about this? So this is one that we've been developing along the way. Joe over obsesses on fame and not having it. Dave thinks he gave or gifted Joe fame.
We need
Dave
some music,
said-
Jim.
Dave said the other day, he's like, but Joe, I gave you 15 minutes of fame. You know how I like fame. You know how I like the idea of fame. You know how I've never had fame.
You never had fame.
You know how
What
I
about-
have never had fame.
You had fame. I gave you 15 minutes of fame.
Oh, so that's okay. So you are the arbiter of fame.
I get in the
And you gave me some gimme fame.
in Daytona.
You had some extra fame.
had some
You
extra
finished your
fame.
plate of fame. And then you handed your unconsumed fame
It was
dinner
a little leftover
to me, the help, to eat if I wanted.
How
Oh, hey,
did-
I couldn't finish my fame burger. You can have it. You can have what's left of my fame burger. You look pretty hungry. So Joe has pride and refuses Dave's unconsumed half a fame burger. But this is linked to Joe's
What?
past with a church camp hamburger. This presents Joe a choice to accept the donated fame burger. And so this is now the challenge in my life as a character on the show.
Gary, it's okay. You can say you're lost because I know
Yeah.
I have no idea what he's talking about, and if I have no idea what he's talking about, you're worse than me sometimes. So
Yeah. Say it again, Joe. deliver it another way. You gotta
All right.
like,
So Joe's character is over obsessing about fame, and he's over obsessing about not having it. Dave's character believes that he has gifted Joe fame, and Joe interprets this as Dave handing a fame burger, a half-eaten fame burger. So like Dave has this feast and he doesn't finish it off of his plate, and then he hands the plate over to the hungry
Okay.
guy.
Understandable.
So Dave has a burger that's full of fame, and he's giving it to you so you'll be famous.
Yes, but the
Okay.
reason he's giving it to me is because his hunger is satiated and he has more fame than he can
He
deal
has
with.
more fame. So do you really obsess with fame? Like you want to be famous? Like you're not going to go out and shoot anybody like a John Lennon or like the president or anything, right?
That
But would
is
you
in-
go that
is
far to be
infamous.
famous?
No, and here's
Infamous,
why.
okay.
And here's why. This is an excellent question. First off, that is infamy. It's not fame.
Infamous.
I think that fame is actually giving lots of people what they love. So you can't get fame by being infamous. You can
Okay,
only
yeah.
get fame when you have given lots of people what they love.
That's what Dave used to do on tour, would give lots of people love and entertainment. So he was very famous back in the day doing what he did with horror.
Yeah.
So that made him very famous back in the day for sure.
well, and that's
And
my
then
point.
Joe seeing that's going, I wish I had that. So maybe I should go on tour with Dave so I can get some of that.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And so let me give you a story, Gary, that ties into it. One time someone posted something on Instagram. Okay, so I had this collection of Swatch watches. You remember that Volker and I had this contest one year to see who could collect the most Swatch watches. And I collected something ridiculous, like 77 Swatch watches that I
just from kids out of the crowd, right? I remember
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and I traded my jersey or, you know, a pair of shoes or gloves or what have you. So I kept this box for years, and I gave all my watches. I used to have parties at my house, and there'd be a basket on the table, on the coffee room table, and I would just say, oh yeah, just pick a watch, just take any watch you want. Like people would just take a watch, and that was just part like their party gift. And years later, I found this old Vans box, and it had just the remaining Swatch watches. A lot of them were broken and not really much left of it. I took a picture, I put it on my Instagram. Some kid from Detroit said, I think that's my Swatch. And I'm like, really? I said, which one? And he said, it's the yellow and green one in the middle. That happened to be the one Swatch that I took, and I put it on my front hub for one tour. Like after I did the thing with Volker, the very next tour, which I think was 88, I took one of the watches and I put it on my front hub, and I rode it the whole tour with that on there. That was the one that the kid said it was his watch. It was completely beat up. It didn't work.
In your hub.
From my hub, right. So I sent that watch back to him along with another watch that worked with it. And he's like, I got to tell you, my wife thinks I'm just totally nuts because she can't believe. And of course I believe the guy, right? So I feel like, I mean, it's hard for me to hold this, I don't know, this claim to fame. I just feel like I've been given opportunities to step into a place where I can like ride with people, learn from people, share experiences, and that continued on. So I'm always trying to deliver that to Joe. I'm always trying to give that experience to Joe by like this show, like, hey, let's just have fun and get people on and make people laugh. And just a little side note, Ray, I love that picture you sent me last night of Joe laughing.
Yeah.
Shots.
That was all in like a 3-minute span.
Oh my gosh.
And the one I've watched that thing like 5 to 10 times, and there's one where Joe is laughing and he's trying not to laugh out loud, and he leans back and does some kind of shimmy that is the funniest thing you'll ever see, because he couldn't take
like
it
that
anymore.
right there. He just did it. He just did it.
I was saying all this stuff, and he like I was giving him too much humor. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like just as I was like, he would be setting up to laugh, and he'd be in mid laugh, he'd hear something funny and had to throw in like a stop, almost like he was getting hit. Yeah. You know, it was his only defense, and I was pissing my pants watching that. Like I just like zoomed in on him to see how hard he was laughing at stuff. And
so
all I was explaining.
I loved it, Ray, because
fucking Amish kids.
I can then it's the Amish kid.
And Gary was right there when we did it. Like I remember calling Gary, like I was saying before, and I'm like, we're like, dude, these guys, the thing about that was they were so like the first thing I saw freestyle wise when I was a kid was Dave, and Dave, Ron Will, and Peter. Peter something, the Peterson guy. John Peterson, the announcer. So I went from seeing that show and seeing like the guys in the uniform, and these are the guys in the magazine. I went from that to then like, you know, for a year straight just watching Gary ride, and then going to the Ohio contest where and seeing all this stuff. So then when you finally see Kevin and Dale and those guys, it was weird. It was really weird. So that's where like I would love to see. Good.
I was just going to say, getting back to my point. So Ray, that was a perfect example of me, because I shared that right away, and I wanted Joe to appreciate it, and I sent it to Joe because I feel like he is famous now because of that picture and the laughter. We have just delivered him a bit more fame, and look at him laughing now. He's going to be the poster child of Factor Freestyle, because it's going to have this effect on people, and laughter is such a valuable thing to have. You guys had this whole show about trying to make me laugh, and I got really uncomfortable because I don't laugh enough. I'm serious.
Which is what actually spurred Dave to say, Joe, we gotta talk. And the whole second season was a result of overstepping. And he's like, I don't want to go in this direction. Please.
Okay. And also, Ray, I realized that I have laughed more since '87, and most of it has been because of Joe and I coming up with these crazy ideas for the show. That's where the laughter is coming.
Yeah.
Okay, so Joe, I think we're on to the next candidate.
We're on to the next candidate. So Ray, now we would like to audition you. And there were 2 questions that we asked ahead of time.
Whatever the audition is, I already nailed it. My audition has already happened, but go ahead.
Well, so let me.
We know we just need to be official.
Maybe audition wasn't the right word. This is an exercise that Dave and I have put together to help us isolate the next funny character storyline. And because we're asking it of you, who is already an esteemed fellow cast member.
But see, that's the thing is, I'm not good when it's on the spot stuff. I can't do it. I have to be in the situation. You know what I mean? Like, you can't be like, okay, Ray, think of something funny that you could do, blah, blah. I come up with nothing. But if I'm in a situation, like, you know, I can find humor in somebody going to buy apples. You know what I mean? Like, I could just figure something out.
So this is why this is how we formulated these questions. So Dave, please do question number 1.
Yeah, and Ray, just so you know, relax and take it easy, because we're just going to get the situation, and you just have to.
I have nothing to worry about. I'm completely relaxed.
Great,
because I got nothing to lose.
and you shine in every moment. So okay, the first question is, with your toothpaste, and you're down to the very last bit of your toothpaste.
Yes.
Well, how do you handle that situation? Do you what do you do with the, getting the last bit of toothpaste out? Do you just kind of you're over it and you don't want to mess with it and you just throw it in the trash? Or do you have some kind of system or process to get that last bit of toothpaste out of your toothpaste?
It usually lasts, the whole situation lasts about a minute. I get down to that very last part and I try to finagle it, pinch it. Then I have a certain thing I do where I can get my thumbs behind the one part and push it up. And then after about a minute, I'm like, this is like a penny's worth of toothpaste, if that. And then I just throw it out and get a brand new. There's nothing better than a brand new tube of anything. And you get that brand new fresh tube. You don't got to fuss with it. You just take the cap off, boom, you put it on. So
it's like that fresh tube of KY when your mom was around.
Damn! See that? Dave's giggling. Yeah, Gary, you did it. Oh man! Look, Jim split. Jim's gone. He's done with us. No more mom. Look how saggy his pants are. They're like nursing home pants. What
look at that.
Pants? He's got like a diaper on. What are the?
He's got poke
put
pants
the wrong
on.
pants on.
He's got poke pants on.
Yeah. Jim, what's up with those pants? What are those pants?
These are Thai fisherman pants.
Why are they so baggy in the bottom? Your butt
they're square. They're square because they come from a culture where you don't buy sizes of clothes, you buy items. So these are pants. These pants fit anyone, and that's why they're big.
I would not consider myself anyone. They
don't
may not
discriminate
fit me,
pants. That's what they are.
Yeah. They identify as a human, those pants.
One size fits all pants.
So Ray,
all right. So we got the toothpaste.
Yeah, that was a great response.
Was that a good answer?
Well,
it was a great answer.
Of course, it's a good answer. I mean, any answer. There's no right or wrong.
There's no right or wrong answer.
No, it's just understanding a little bit more of, especially the daily kind of situations and when you're in it, what, you know, what you do. So that sums it up. It's like, okay, this, when you, the realization is like, this is worth like not even a penny, and I'm over it. I spent my minute to get the last what I can, and then I moved on. So that's a great
And
quality.
that situation happens in your life all day,
Exactly.
at work, at home, where there's something you're just like, wait, a little bit more. And if you can learn to just go, you know what, forget it, and let's go on to the next thing, you'll get a lot more done.
Exactly. And that's
You
the
know?
meaning, the deeper meaning that I think we're gonna, you know, continue to bring to the audience. And that's a quality that we see you shine in, even on the spot, Ray, even on the spot. See?
Yeah.
Okay. Number 2, Joe, you go for this one.
Do you now recognize the power of these questions?
Sorta. Yeah.
Okay, here's the next
Yes.
one.
I mean, that one definitely.
Okay, how do you handle when you have a hole in your sock?
Man, that's such a good one, because I can have a hole in my sock for a year. Like, I have so many socks, and I can have a hole. Like, I will kick my shoe off and move that bunch of sock out and over, or tuck it under. I can wear a sock with a hole in it for over a year easily. And somewhere in my body, I'm just like, throw it out. And I won't. Socks are different,
Not with
man.
my
I'm like,
baby
you know what,
feet.
these socks
One
are good.
hole, gone.
Dude, you guys, this is a whole nother story. Gary's bare feet have never touched anything. His feet are the same texture and smoothness as the day he was born. And I'm not making that up. You can't make that up. And the first time I saw it, I was, for about an hour, I was just like, I've never seen anyone that had feet that smooth. Gary's feet are, you could do a documentary about the bottoms of Gary's feet. It's ridiculous.
High maintenance.
Is this like a never nude situation, but with socks instead of like jean shorts?
I don't know.
Josh,
No, it's weird. It's
Gary,
not
do you
like,
take
it's
showers
not, you
with
know what it
socks
is?
on?
You don't use like shower shoes at your house, do you? When you take a shower, Gary, you're barefoot, right?
Yeah. Just like, I just
Yeah.
don't run out into like a parking lot, without
Yeah.
like flip flops or
Gary
something.
just never barefoot. Gary's
Yeah. No. Never.
Yeah. All right, on to the next one.
Oh, that
We'll
was
go
a
back to
great,
Gary's.
that was a great answer. Joe, you just realized what the level of commitment that Ray has is a year. Did you hear that? He said a year, 300
No way.
days.
So what is what actually does it? At some point, you make the decision that sock's gotta go.
It's weird, because the more I think about it, the less I can give you. The answer would be, like, if you asked my wife, she would just say, like, just throw it out. Like, there's no need to save it. The only thing I can think of, it's like, maybe in my head, I have learned from people, from like maybe like my dad and grandmother, when they talk about the Depression, and like you'd get a stain on your shirt, and my dad would be, and I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna throw that shirt out because it's got a stain on it. And like 4 years later, I'd see my dad just like rocking the shirt, and I'm like, Dad, I threw that out 4 years ago. He's like, yeah, but it's a perfectly good shirt. Like, when I was a kid, you didn't throw a shirt out. And so it might be something like that, where the toothpaste I can throw out because it's only a teeny bit. A sock, even though I have 40 pairs of socks, I'm like, I can still get a little wear out of this. If you just pull the sock out and tuck it under, shorten the sock a little bit, you can wear that sock for another 7 to 10 months. It's only a little hole.
My dad grew up in the Depression era, and so as he was raising me all through my life, he kind of followed this mantra of waste not, want not. And I think a lot of people my age kind of grew up with that same mentality where, you know, if you don't
Yeah.
finish your food, it goes into the fridge and you come back. Like that level of, you know, if you need something, it's probably because you've wasted it. And I've actually spent a big chunk of my adult life trying to get past that and let it go to where, you know, I can have abundance without hanging on to everything. So that's kind of like an interesting thing. Yeah.
I could talk about that kind of stuff forever. I have stories and stories of my father during the Depression. Like my dad was like poorer than poor, and the things they did to survive and the help that they got so they got normal is unbelievable. So if you guys ever know anybody that's doing any type of depression talk of like how people survived in the Depression, my grandmother and my dad filled me with years of stories, and they're
Yeah.
awesome.
So
Yeah.
Ray and Jim, that would mean that your parents were in their 30s or 40s when you were born, right?
Yeah, my dad was actually quite old. I think he was 46. My dad was born in 1930, so he was old. He was like
Mine was
mistaken.
33, 1933.
Yeah.
So yeah, they were right
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the same wheelhouse there. That's
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Jim, where was your dad from? Where'd he grow up?
Yeah, he grew up in like Rochester, New York.
Okay. I was gonna say if you
So-
said Philadelphia, I would have freaked out, but
No, he was in New York. He was in New York, and one of I think he was one of 8 kids. So they had they had it really rough. This is going like way off the rails, but like, you know,
No, it's great.
he started working really young, and he you know, faked his age and joined the Navy actually at 16. So I think he actually got out of the Navy before he was 18, which is kind of funny.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that? A 16-year-old kid today, like they can't even go to the mall without their phone fully charged. You know what I mean? Your dad joined the Navy, you know, like
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. He got this giant anchor tattoo on his forearm that I'm assuming he got when he was 16 or 17.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, old school shit, man.
Yeah.
It's real old school shit.
Okay, so Ray, we have one last question that is really essential. Joe, why don't you deliver this one to Ray? Because
I don't know how to do it. You have to do it.
Real
I
quick,
don't have the script.
before we end this, I have a Depression era story that has to do with bicycle riding, which my dad and I were involved in, which Joe might think's good. But go ahead.
Let's do that
Sorry
right
to
now.
interrupt.
Let's do
Let's
that
do it
right
right
now.
there. No.
No, let's do it right now.
Okay. When I was 12, I was with my dad at the local elementary school, running behind him while he was pedaling a bike. And I was teaching my dad how to ride a bike. I was 12,
No
but
way.
he was 50. And there was a family watching us.
Wow.
And I didn't really know, like my dad one day goes, you know, I would really like to learn how to ride a bike. And to me, I was just like, my dad never learned how to ride a bike. So I'm running behind him going like, I was explaining to him what a coaster brake was, and like he had a coaster brake and he had a front brake. And I'm like, you don't want to slam on that front brake. You want to use the coaster brake. And he goes, I don't know how to pedal backwards. I'm like, you got to stand on it. But this family was watching us do it. And they came up in the middle of it and they're like, what's going on here? And my dad's like, oh, I'm learning how to ride a bike. And all I knew was my dad never knew how to ride a bike. And they're like, why? How do you not know how to ride a bike? My dad's like, well, I grew up in the Depression. He goes, and I grew up in a boys' home, and we didn't have bikes. We had like a football and a soccer ball and whatever, and we played musical instruments, and we didn't have bicycles. So when I was a kid growing up, nobody really had a bike because you couldn't afford them. They were using the bikes for other stuff. And then World War II happened, and like no one's out, you know, they're not banging out bikes, they're building shit for war.
Ships,
So,
right? Tanks.
when I was 12, I had to teach my father how to ride a bike. And there was a family watching us And then I figured out like, oh, it's because my dad was poor. When I was 12, I didn't realize.
And then
that
tell him
until
this.
I got
And when
older,
he
but-
learned how to ride that bike, he rode that bike every day for hours after work.
Yeah.
I'd come to Ray's
I have
house, and his dad was always out riding that bike.
always
dude.
on the bike.
Always.
He rode a bike for. I have a video I'll send you when we're done here, Joe. It's a video
Oh,
of my
it's
dad
awesome.
wearing Gary's CW jersey and going for a bike ride because the CW jersey had elbow pads in it, like sewn in. So my dad was wearing a black and pink CW jersey at age 60, going to ride around Valley Forge Park.
Yeah,
Booyah!
that was awesome.
That we
All right,
have to
next
see that.
question.
Heck yeah.
I have it. I
We
can
have
send it
to
to you right, as soon as we're done. As soon as we're done, Dave, I'll send it to you.
Oh, that's
It's good
so
stuff.
great. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that story, Ray. That is amazing. So I have a little story about my dad because that reminded me. When I moved to San Diego from Chicago, and I was into skateboarding, and I had one of those aluminum boards. It was a bonsai board. You guys remember those? They had big old wheels, sim wheels,
Yeah.
and then a tiny little board, and it was purple aluminum, and it had the tail, both the front and the rear had the little lip on it. And so I lived on this street that had a very small little hill. It was just like a dip that went down and back up. And my dad was like, so my dad would have been, he probably would have been like mid-30s. And he's like, yeah, I think I want to give the skateboard a shot. And I'm like, all right, Dad, well, let's go down the street. And he's like, well, I think I'm just going to do down the hill. And I'm like, you sure, Dad? Sure you want to take it down the hill? And he's like, yeah. So my dad,
Oh, Dad.
and my dad's he's a little bit heavier. Well, now he's very thin, but he was a little bit heavier set than me. And he gets on this little tiny board and he just starts cruising down this hill. And exactly, Joe, the board started to do the speed wobble and he stepped off and like tumbled and like got this huge, big old raspberry
Road rash.
on
Yep.
his elbow. And I felt so bad. And I was like, oh, so Ray, I think I need to have some lessons on how to teach fathers.
If he wants to go skateboard again, I got some
Oh,
old
wow.
Oh
ones.
my
here.
gosh. What?
What?
Wow.
I have the first steel ones. Then I
Wow.
have the clay ones,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
then finally,
Ray's been antiquing.
oh, these are just what I
Wow.
have left. I had like 30 of them, and I sold them to some dude when he came to my house to buy a bunch of bikes. I had all kinds of nonsense, a
wow.
lot of nonsense.
That's
I think
and so
this-
those were ones that you collected like as a kid and from the families in the neighborhood.
One of them, yeah, a couple of them I got at a garage sale right down the road from my house. And the girl was like, oh, we used to skate all up and down the road here. So I haven't bought crap. I get rid of stuff now. But those I just kept because of the different wheels. They're like each generation.
Well,
you
and
know.
Joe,
Mhm.
just put it in perspective. If he has a hole in his sock, it keeps it for a year. So a
Yeah.
skateboard, like with a broken wheel, he's probably going to keep
Yeah.
it for.
Well, no, these
10 years.
I had 30 skateboards and I got rid of them. That hole was gone. I'm all about throwing stuff out these days, but I do keep a few things.
Okay, so here's our final question, Ray.
Yes.
Joe, can you deliver this one? Are you prepared?
No, I'm not prepared. I don't have
Gosh,
notes.
Joe.
Why is he not
You're gonna have to do
prepared?
it again.
I know, Joe.
Dave wrote that. So the reason I'm not prepared is because Dave Dave hit me up yesterday in the middle of my workday, and I had exactly 30 minutes.
During
And
his
I
lunch.
let Dave during my lunch, and I let Dave.
As he was eating
Take
his
the
tuna
notes,
fish
and I
sandwich, he was trying to
brainstormed.
mumble through this. Okay, all right. So here's the final question.
Hit it.
We lost Gary. And my internet's not stable, it says.
You'll be fine.
All right. Okay, so Ray,
Yes.
Are you prepared for personal growth?
No,
Ooh,
not at all. No, I don't like. Not really. I like the.
okay.
I am all about stuff. I don't like taking risks. I like stuff staying the same these days. I don't really like going anywhere. I don't do anything. So personal growth, I think maybe personal growth emotionally I could do, as in like situations with my family, you know, as I get older. But like
Okay.
personal growth, like I don't feel like I have to get better at anything that's
Can you
important
hold
to
that?
other people. I'm
Can
more
you hold
about
that consistently throughout your whole character then? Because if that's your answer, there's no right or wrong answer, then
That's a
You
perfect
are-
answer.
your character is nonconformist to personal growth.
right, whatever that means. Yeah.
Well,
Like-
you're not gonna personally grow. You're gonna
No, I don't know. I don't see. I feel the word grow most of the time means getting better. And there's tons of things I probably have to be better at, but it's too hard to do. So I just deal with the way the stuff is now. You know what I mean? Like, so like in like every aspect of my life, I'm not looking to, I'm not, it's kind of weird. Like, I'm not saying I'm already good at stuff, but the stuff that I wanted to accomplish, I've already done it. So was it personal growth you were saying?
Yeah,
Is that the line?
yeah, personal growth.
Yeah, personal growth. Yeah, no, I don't, I think if anything, I don't have personal growth. I'm personal maintaining a level of where I'm at now. Like where I'm at now, I think I'm pretty happy. Like I don't have any goals really. You know, like I don't have like the only goal I would really have is to weigh 180 pounds again. That'd be like one real goal. If I accomplished that, that'd be something. But other than that, things are pretty good. So I don't
All right.
really have
This is
anywhere to
the-
really grow. Does that
I
make
love
sense?
this answer. It does, because you're saying, I
such a
did
good
my
answer.
growing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What I have.
It's like I built the
Don't-
boat, now I'm gonna sail in it, you know?
That's right.
You know?
That's
I'll
right.
be honest, I wasn't expecting that answer from anyone. So, yeah,
It's
props.
the best.
Is it a good answer?
It's
It is a good
great.
answer.
It's an
My answer
awesome
was.
answer.
It's the
I mean, it's-
perfect
Okay.
answer.
it's your answer, so it's
I think
correct.
it's a real answer because I'm not really sure what I said, but
You can go back and watch this, Ray, and then remember what you said.
I
Okay,
So that's the
have something
character.
for Joe again.
yeah, that's
All right,
it.
I have
there.
something
let's see it.
I'm a little obsessed with Joe. Here's something weird. I'm obsessed with Joe. I love to bring things to Joe to get a reaction. Like I'm like that little kid that wants their parent to be proud. Like I'm like playing basketball, like Dad, watch, and they missed 12 shots. I'm like, Dad, watch. And I like to find these things that I think Joe will appreciate. So here's what it's wrote. And this isn't that great, but maybe Joe will laugh.
Okay. Okay.
This has to do with what we're talking about of not throwing something out. And I've kept something forever, and I don't.
Oh my
know
gosh!
why.
And you're frozen. You're frozen on the screen, so I can't wait till I see it. No, keep going. Keep going. It'll
Well,
fix itself.
Okay. All right. So I don't throw anything out, and I like to keep like this isn't as good as the watch, but it's the same thing as the watch. So
Yeah.
we're at Mark Eaton's wedding. I guess he got married in like 95, maybe 96. And when I was leaving the wedding, there's like the little table that says like your name, like it has the card. It would say like Ray Schleckweg, table 4, prime. As I was leaving, there were like 3 of the things on the table that these people didn't show up to the wedding. So I like look over and I'm like, oh, I didn't know he never showed up. So this was the little party fair. It was cookie, and then it had, if you can see it, this was the thing that you would take to your table to see where you would go sit. But Dave didn't show up because he had to go to a contest, and so it was like a bag with a little cookie in it, and that was it. So I saved that.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Oh my
That's
God.
just,
I love that because I will do that. Okay. This one time, I went to art school, and this one time we went down to New Orleans for this. Oh my God. We go down to New Orleans for this like conference, and there was this very famous potter who had created his own company, and he was doing this autograph signing thing. But what he did was he said, bring your own shirt, and I will silk screen my logo on it, which was him walking naked with his grandson. It's
What?
like a hippie thing.
yeah.
But it was
Gotta be.
from the back, from the back. And then he would autograph it. Well, people were lined up for this because they knew about it and they brought their shirts that they had bought. I, however, was unprepared, but I knew this guy, Paul Soldner, I think. And so I walk up, I get my place in line, I take my shirt off, and I hand it to him. And he silk screens it, and he goes, what's your name? I go, hold on a second. Before you sign it, I'm going to tell you my name, but I want you to sign the name Buckwheat. And he goes, okay. And so and that was my relic. That was a thing that I kept, because anyone could have gone up and gotten him to autograph that. But I got him to autograph it that no one else would believe that it was the autograph, but it was his autograph. I love that shit.
So I think we formulated Ray's character, right? He's the guy that doesn't.
He built the
need that.
boat.
Yeah, his boat's
He's like,
built.
get out of here with this hippie shit. And enough with this, like Tony Robbins.
Yeah,
Go
who
sell
needs
that to
personal
someone
growth?
who's
what?
go sell that shit to someone who's unhappy. I busted my ass and built my boat, and I'm sailing it.
And I'm just
Yeah.
gonna enjoy it. And I'm gonna enjoy it. And the other aspect is that he's gonna bring these, random memorabilias that and stories that go along with it, like the Dave Mirror card. That's amazing. I mean, yeah, maybe it's not as great as the watch, but it's awesome.
It's just something that I kept for a long time, and there's no reason to keep it, and there's nothing you can do with it. You know what I mean? Like, but it's in my garage. I have it.
It's so perfect. That is a jewel. That is a jewel. Unlike, all right. So the whole point of jewels, okay, is to have something that took a hell of a lot of effort to find, to figure out, and then to craft. And it's unlike anything else on earth. What has happened since the Industrial Revolution is that all of this access to what splendor has been industrialized. And now you see these rapper kids with these $500,000, $500,000 drips, but they bought that from the factory. It's great that they got the money to spend it, but it's attainable. Okay. Jeff Bezos could come around and buy more of those. There is a type of wealth that cannot be bought with money. And what you have, Ray, that thing
Yes.
is that gem that cannot be, that is wealth that cannot be bought with money.
I agree.
There's intrinsic value.
And I
that-
have a theory on maybe something like that. I have a like,
Let's hear it.
well, this is going back to the whole like depression thing. So, I was in a situation where somebody wanted a birthday cake. There was an adult was like, oh, I want to, like, it's so-and-so's birthday, and somebody got this person a cake, and they were like, oh, I didn't want a vanilla cake. I wanted a chocolate cake. So they went and they got the person like the chocolate cake, and they were like, oh, man, I didn't want that. I wanted the cake from the other place that had the something. So then this person got a third cake. And I was really, really mad, like fuming mad. And the people there that I was with, they were like, what do you give a fuck about that? I'm like, I don't know. I'm really not mad at that. I'm mad at something else. I'm like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, my mom told me a story a few years before she died that she had, when she'd met my father, after like they were dating like maybe like 2 or 3 months, and it was my dad's birthday, and my mom made my dad a cake, and she was all excited, like, oh, this new guy I'm dating, I made him this cake, oh, he's gonna love it. So she presents this cake to my dad for like his 30th birthday, and he's like, okay. My mom was like, what's going on? Like, do you not like cake? And he's like, oh no, I love cake. It looks delicious. I can't wait to eat it. He goes, I just don't know why you made a cake. And she's like, well, it's your birthday. And he goes, oh, okay. Like, don't like just like little kids get a cake maybe or something. And my mom was like, no, you get a cake every year when it's your birthday, whether you're 4 or you're 60, you can get a cake. And my dad's like, oh, okay. And my mom said, well, how old were you when you stopped getting birthday cakes? And he looked at her, and I could almost cry right now. He goes, I've never had a birthday cake.
Oh,
It was his first birthday cake at 30.
wow.
He had like, what kind of experiences did he have in his life? And he didn't, and my dad never complained about anything. He thought he had the greatest life in the world, and he did. He had a great life. But he went without shit when he was a kid and kind of knew it, but he didn't let it affect his shit. So after I heard that story, then like years later, when this person was like, oh, I want this cake, I want that cake, I want this. And I was thinking, I was like, my fucking dad never even had to make that decision. And
Right.
can you imagine sitting around being like all upset about a certain cake where my dad never even had that opportunity? And I also don't think he gave a shit about it. And so I think maybe stuff like that, growing up hearing those stories, like how Jim was saying, like, you know, growing up with a father that was older in that era, it's like you get a perspective of stuff that's a lot different than what you'll see. And maybe that's why I think I already built the boat and I'm just sailing it now, because I don't expect, it's kind of weird. I don't expect a lot from myself, but I do, but I don't. Like, I don't know if that makes any sense. You guys are freaking me out, man.
No, this
You
is
see, this is what we're trying to do here.
yeah.
And what
He
you
needs a
just
safe
told
word.
was
He needs
like
a safe word, Joe. That's
Oh,
the
yeah,
last thing we have to ask you. Ray, Gary came up with a safe word, and it was
Right.
Bubba.
Yeah.
So what's your safe word? Because if you get down that road, like we might even say it, if you feel like, you know, you're too vulnerable and you've opened up too much, we might just throw that safe word out.
I think I'd have to take it right out of Seinfeld, Tippy Toe Lemon Tree. If you know that
Tippy-toe
reference.
lemon tree.
If you know that reference, it's great.
Perfect.
Tippy Toe Lemon Tree. Like if somebody's saying something and you're, whoa, and you don't want to tippy toe Lemon Tree. Okay.
Perfect.
Never mind. Yeah.
I
Has
love
that
If
it.
you
been
ever see that
entered into the
episode,
law
if you ever
still?
watch that show and see that, you'll pee your pants.
That had to have been in like season 1 or 2.
I don't
remember
know.
it.
I
Because I don't
remember the
remember that one.
episode. It was an episode where one of the guys left a message on somebody's machine, and then they had to sneak back into this lady's apartment to get rid of the tape that was in the answering machine. And they're like, "All right, I'm gonna go in the back and get it." And then they're like, "All right, well, what if she starts coming? What are you gonna do?" "Well, if they start coming, I need you, like, whistle." And he's like, "I can't whistle." "All right, well, just say tippy toe lemon tree," or something like that. So like as one of the dudes is walking back, like Jerry or somebody, George is freaking out. He's like, "Oh my God, tippy toe lemon tree, tippy toe lemon tree," and it's just really funny. And then my friends and I think my brother, we've used it for years now. When somebody's doing something and you want to be like, no, you just say tippy toe lemon tree, and then it just diverts whatever they were saying. So why is he saying tippy toe lemon tree? So there you go.
All right, that's perfect.
All right,
Hey,
so
so
that's
Joe-
Ray's safe word. That's your character's
Ray-
safe word. This
Ray
is
has-
so good.
Yeah, it's so good. So Ray,
And
has
by the way,
told-
I'm just gonna say one final thing.
yeah,
That story you told, Ray, was emblematic of hard times make strong men.
yeah,
Yes. Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think my dad, at one point later in my dad's life, when he was like pretty much on his deathbed, he was just like thinking, he's like, "You know what? I don't think there's anything anybody's thrown at me that I haven't been able to, like, everything's happened to me." Like, you name something, like death, financial problems, good stuff, bad stuff. He's like, "I've had it all." And he's like, "And I'm living large," like he figured it out.
When's
He
your
didn't let-
birthday, Ray? What's your birthday?
My birth date is June 19th, 1969. Or you send me a cake?
think
There's
it-
3 different ones I want.
I think there's more than one cake coming your way. When you know. Okay. So, okay, Joe, I just have to share this quick story because Ray inspired me to. What do you got? Oh, you got the incense? Okay, yeah, get the incense going.
There we go.
So,
I
Ray,
can
you were
smell it
talking
from
about the birthdays, and so Wilkerson invited a bunch of riders to Woodward when he turned 43, and he wanted to do 10-foot air. I think it was 10
I
foot
remember
air
that.
on the half pipe, on the big mega ramp, or big not mega ramp, but the big half pipe.
Like the
And,
like the 12-footer, John.
Yeah, I was trying to think of something to do that was kind of cool and something that he could remember. So I decided to make these magnets, and I took his logo and I had this guy make this magnet. I'm going to see if you guys can see it. Oh yeah. you can
Yeah,
see it.
43.
Wow.
So it
43
says 43 hip. And then you see how I use the Vision Streetwear. Oh wait, go. It says instead of it's a Vision Streetwear, like the logo, but it says actually Ron W. January 2009. And then at the bottom it says King of, and then there's a blank. So what I
Prussia.
wanted people to do is fill in the blank. Fill in king of what? Like, what is Ron the king of? So I love hearing those stories about, like, birthdays. Birthdays are really significant. And I think we should start a theme on this show about birthdays to do crazy stuff. Like Ray's got this thing with cakes now. So obviously we're going to send him 43 cakes when he turns, wait, let's see, 69. How old will you be in June then? You'll be
I'll be 53.
53.
Instead of 43, I'll be 50. I'm 50. Yeah, I'll be 53 in June.
53. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I just had that idea, like coming up with this fun, because those are those intrinsic, memorable artifacts that then I don't even know who has these magnets. I think I might have one at home. This is a picture from my Instagram, but I just want to create those, Joe, because I think that is substantial. And Ray brought that to the table.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That's brilliant. You are a very good friend to Ron, Dave. That was a brilliant event.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Okay, so Joe, we've got about 15 minutes and I've been like stirring in my seat this whole time because I've got some serious apologies to cover on this show. I can't let it
Oh,
go.
we have to apology. So
Did Gary
yes,
leave? Where's Gary? Is Gary gone?
Gary left.
Gary had to, yeah, Gary
Oh,
left.
okay.
He had enough personal growth for the day,
Did he? Okay.
I think.
So Dave's gonna apologize.
Yeah. Because
Let me tell you this.
Who are you-
Before you get into your apologies, I hate I hate putting somebody through an apology. I get sad when somebody has to apologize about something. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I don't like it when people, as much as I like messing with people, I hate when people are sad. And if somebody is because Dave, the last time we talked, I was like, I remember I texted you, Joe, and I was like, man,
Yeah.
I'm like,
I think we broke
Dave
Dave.
really is bummed out. And I was really, really upset when we got done because I was like, I really think Dave's upset. Like he really is. And now this is beat, you know what I mean? So, but I think I know what Dave's going to apologize about. So he doesn't have to apologize to me at all. It's just a big apology to you, Joe.
Well,
What I
there's many, but I can only cover so much per show because we got just 15 minutes. What was that? I missed it.
I was just
Nothing.
laughing.
What did Ray say?
Nothing.
You
I
didn't.
didn't say anything. I
Okay.
just said what I said I think this apology is coming to Joe. I really don't think you need to apologize to me. You know?
Okay, so here's where my apology began, and it needs to have another apology. So last show, I spoke to
Oh,
Joe Sisman, and I said I need to apologize to Joe Johnson because I was the one that came up with this idea that maybe he had ants in his pants when he invented the tail whip. And we took that pretty far. And I apologized publicly for Joe. And Joe put a comment on our
for Joe or to Joe?
I did it to Joe, didn't I?
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I did it to Joe Johnson. And I got to make sure I'm saying the right. So I did apology to Joe Johnson. Joe Johnson then put a comment on our YouTube channel. And it said, so take note of this, Joe. I don't know if you've read this, but it says, well, I, for one, still love Dave Norrie. Now that's an important aspect because I want to be loved out there. You know, I don't want haters. And then he says, Dave, you certainly had nothing to apologize for to this point. But the fact that you gave an apologize implies that I'm the type of person who would be upset with the ants in the pants story. So considering that couldn't be further from the truth, I feel like an apology for the apology may be in order. So
Joe loves that kind of stuff.
yeah, I mean, I get it, Joe, and I realize now what I did.
That's so funny.
Because I took it to I thought, well, he might have been upset, and Joe Sisman and I, kind of set him up. We had these people, over and over, you're asking these people, and then we played the video for Joe, and Joe was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe people are talking about this. And I thought, okay, Joe needs an apology. So here I am to say, Joe Johnson, I sincerely apologize for even thinking that you can't take a joke about ants in your pants, that you are kind of individual that can have fun with this kind of stuff. It's not going to take anything out of you. Personally, you're not going to be offended. And if you were, you would say something to me directly. So I sincerely apologize for making a fool out of you by apologizing, thinking that you wouldn't appreciate this as a joke. So I hope that's something that you can feel good about, because I do want to apologize, and I will keep the jokes coming.
Thanks.
So there's my apology.
I can't wait to see Joe's comment this week.
Yeah.
Do we have time for one more? I have an apology if there's time.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yes,
no.
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah. So yeah, I would actually like to apologize to Brett Downs. I'm apologizing because I completely misread this guy. I've always thought of myself as a pretty apt character read, and I missed it by a mile. Brett, I misread you at our first meeting, which was at Battle in the Rockies. I think I spoke to James and maybe Dave. I saw him, recognized him, and was trying to get his attention. So I was giving him the look and the nod, eye contact, nod. Hey, Brett Downs. Hey. And he didn't know who the fuck I was. So, and it rattled me. I was like, oh my God, I don't think he likes me. He must have something against me, because I've looked at him, I gave him the nod. James, I gave him the nod 3 times. And I got nothing. And it was funny. He had nothing against me. He didn't know who the fuck this crazy guy was that was just kept like dead ass staring him. He had no idea, so he was just going on with his day. So fast forward, I got a little more familiar with him. I started to understand his kind of particular brand of humor and just the way he is. And I actually really like him, and I just completely misread him, and I think he's a cool guy. And so, Brett, I misjudged you at first, and for that, I apologize.
Good. That was a really good one.
That was great.
That was a really good one because it was very subtle. What you were responding to was very subtle. It means that you're paying attention to those nuances. Oh, and Ray, we are rating one another's apologies. We're grading them on the Chase Gwynn system of difficulty, originality, style, and consistency.
I have an apology that I owe somebody, and I could never do it. I couldn't do it. Like, if he was on here right now, I would just be like, I gotta go, because I'm still scared. I'm deathly afraid of the confrontation. And I almost think this person would just like laugh it off, but I also think the person may be like, hey, I don't want to talk about it. And that's the incident in Florida in 1987, where the hotel was evacuated because of the microwave. Like that, like picture that today. I have an 11-year-old son. If my son did something like that, I don't know how I would even go on with like being his dad. I'd be like, what did I do wrong that you did that? You know what I mean? And so like that would be that would make for a good show, because a lot of people know that story, and I would be scared. I'm still afraid to this day of confronting Bob Morales to see what he would say. And I'd love to speak my piece and explain why it happened, but I don't think it matters, because it was the actual thing that happened is what was bad, and what led up to it was just me being afraid, threatened, angry, and wanting to get back at somebody. And that's not how you do it. But when you're 17 and you got a 14-year-old kid egging you on or whatever, and he was also part of why it went bad. But so anyway, so that's an apology I'm definitely afraid of.
So one of the ways that we're trying to give ourselves a safe space to focus on the apology is to not have the guy on the line.
Yeah.
And so do you feel that you would be able to deliver a recorded apology now that we could get
No,
Bob?
you know what? No.
You don't want to even go there?
I don't know. I want if I ever have to do it, I need the interaction of him with me, because I need to hear his
Got it.
side to then put up my reason for, because I could explain it very easily. And if he goes, oh, it's no big deal, then it would be pretty funny, because then you could explain it. But if he was like, you know what? I lost my house because of that, because I had that hotel did this and I couldn't that, and I had just bought a house and I had to then sell it because I couldn't get the insurance. Like, that's what I'm afraid of. The
Right.
adult in me now is deathly afraid of what really happened back in 1987 to Bob Morales when he was, probably like 26,
Mhm.
and I was 16, 17.
And we
so.
also have to make sure that there's no personal growth happening, that Ray has to deliver this from a place with no personal growth. And that's a fine line that you're dancing now, Ray, because if you do this,
Yeah.
there might be a hint
Yeah.
of personal growth. I'm just saying.
No,
It's
I don't
out
think
there.
I don't think there'd be any personal growth. I already know where I am with this story and how it has affected me. And it's affected me in a good way and a bad way, which is really
Okay.
weird. Like, it's a situation that happened, and it's there's no more growth. It's just facts. And if I found out more about, I think the thing is, I'd want to find out on Bob Morales' side if he got in any type of, if he had a problem, like if he got in any trouble, or if
Right.
it caused him. Because I wasn't looking to cause any problem. That's probably what it is. I still do, and back then I had such a love for the sport and the scene
Right.
of contests and the whole community of freestyle. As much as I liked causing a ruckus and being like a total dick back then, just being silly, I never wanted to do anything that would cause anybody harm.
Okay.
And
So
I have a feeling that did.
if we get Bob
So.
on, do you want like a couple weeks notice? Do you want a month notice? Do you want 6 months?
No, you could click them on right now.
Fair enough.
And I would just figure it out. You know what I mean? I
Okay.
would just be like, okay, here it is. In a way, I'd be, yeah, like if you were like, hey, okay, in 3 weeks we're gonna have Bob on, then I'd be bummed out, because then I'd be thinking about it a lot.
Yeah.
You
That's
You know what I
kind of why
mean?
I asked.
I'd rather just go in and get the tooth pulled and be done.
This is so perfectly Ray. So I'll tell you what I'm observing here. So first off, I have to say, from the first day I heard that story, I was at Woodward, and somebody told me the story. It might have been Mark McKee.
Yeah, he was probably
was
there
like-
when
I was like, I have got to be friends with this dude. And so it took years for me, and then finally there was an Amplat show contest in
in
Pennsylvania.
Oaks, PA. I didn't
and
really talk to you there, though, man.
I
saw
know,
you
but-
there. Why didn't
So
we
here-
talk? Why didn't?
Here's the setup. I thought, wait a second. I'm going to get Large Ray on the guest list. And I went up, got him on the guest list, and I just said, you're on the guest list. Just tell him your name. And I guess Ray walked up and he goes, I'm on the guest list. And she goes, are you Large Ray? And
She did,
she
yeah.
gave him 2 tickets, and he brought his buddy, and they showed up. Now, Ray's there. I say hi to Ray. I was like practicing, but like everyone who was there was like, it's Ray.
A lot of Flatlanders know who I am because of the Dorkin stuff, I think. Don't you think?
Yes.
Like, Like I never heard of Terry Adams until I went there, and he came up to me like we were buddies, and he's like, "Hey, were you at this thing and you were this?" I was talking to him for like a half hour, and he goes, "Hey, let's get a picture together." And I took a picture with him, and then Brett Downs was laughing, and he's looking at me, and I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "You don't even know, do you?" And I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Do you know who that dude is?" And I'm like, I think his name's Terry. And he goes, "He's one of the best Flatlanders like ever." I'm like, "Really?" Because he just looked like a little kid. He was like real, just looked like a little dude. And he was talking to me as if like he knew me. Because he asked me, he goes, "Hey, were you at like this contest in Peru in like '94?" And I'm like, "No, I was like working at a copy center." Like, no, and he kept asking me, like, "You're sure you weren't there? Because everybody said you were there." I'm like, "What do you mean everybody said I was there?" And he's like, everybody thought Large Ray was there. So like in the Flatland world, people,
There's a
at that
bootleg
point,
Large Ray out there.
there is, yeah. Well, here's one that's funny is, what's his name? Ivan. You know Ivan, right, from
Yeah.
Florida.
Yes.
So
He could
Ivan
probably.
Ivan was doing at that contest. Ivan did like a triple decade or something, or a triple tail up or something crazy. And some kid
Yep.
goes, "Yo, are you Large Ray?" And he looked at me, and I was like, "If you're riding like that and somebody says, 'Are you Large Ray?' please say yes. Just go yes." Because that way they'll be like, "Yo, I was at that Oaks contest in PA, and Large Ray went out there and did a triple decade right in front of me." And then I'll be like, "You damn right I did. Yeah, I built the ship, and I'm still riding it.
This is
I
the
built
fun,
the
this is the
boat."
best shit ever. So okay, yeah. So Ray is in there, and then I see Ray and Terry, and I'm like, this is just gonna take care of itself. I'll talk more to Ray later, but it was amazing what happened when he walked in that door. So but then we like continued to be like text buddies and Instagram buddies and
Yeah.
stuff like that for years
I always
afterwards.
used to ask Eaton, I go, "Who's this Joe Sisman dude?
Bye,
Are you
Jim.
leaving?
See you,
Jim, are you going?"
Yeah, I have to go.
See,
Somebody's
Jim,
trying to get in this room, so I gotta go. I'm sorry.
should we call for help?
No, it's cool.
You're in the state penitentiary?
yeah.
He's like, "Someone's trying
No,
to get
I
into the
just-
room."
I have to go.
Blink
Okay.
twice if
Wow.
you're
Don't worry
okay.
about it. Safe word. What's Jim's safe
What's
word?
what's your safe word? Yeah.
Did we tell Lemon we didn't get a safe word? What
Oh,
are we
shit.
doing? He's trying to get into the room. Is he at his house, or what is he doing? Is he okay?
I
Worried. I'm
don't.
worried.
Yeah, I'm a little bit worried too. Maybe he lives in a condo.
Where's he live? Where is he at right now? Where's he live?
Austin.
Austin, Texas.
Oh, Austin, Texas. Okay, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
I thought you said Boston. I'm like, I could be there in 6 hours.
Mm.
It is
Okay,
Saturday.
so go ahead, Ray.
Well, what was I saying? What were we saying?
You and I were texting. We were text buddies.
Oh, I was
for
asking
years.
Eaton all the time. I go, "Who's this Joe Sisman dude?" And he's like, "Oh, he's a Flatlander from Ohio." And I'm like, for some reason, I'm like, I talk to him all the time, but I don't know who he is, but he always comments on stuff. And then I'll like text him, and then he said that there's this thing in Pennsylvania, and then now he's going to get me a ticket. Like, I guess me and Dave will go to this Flatland thing. But like, I feel like I talk to this dude all the time, but I don't know why he talks to me all the time. I'm like, what's going on? Like, who is this dude? You know? Because I remember going there and barely seeing you. Like, I barely talked to you. You were just like, "Hey, Ray, what's up?" And I was like, "Oh, hey, what's up?" And I was with my friend Dave, and Dave's like, "Who's that?" I'm like, "Just some dude." I go, "I think he's the guy that got us our tickets to get in here." He's like, "Oh, okay." And then, so that was something.
Yep, that's true.
All right, guys. So we covered a lot of ground, and I think we should probably wrap it up. It's been 2 hours. I know Ray's only been on for an hour and a half, but
Yeah.
Thank you, Ray. This has been
I could be here. You
This
guys
is-
realize I could do this all day. Like this may be the reason I'm on Earth, is to just
this
sit
is your
and tell
calling.
silly stories, just like the weird stories about my dad and the cake, and just like Gary Pollock stuff. Like it's my strongest point. It's my strongest feature, is that I can tell goofy stories. I remember them all, you know?
And now they're
So-
going to be canonized as Dave's, like, this life affirming, life changing. We're calling this, Ray, is freemium life coaching.
Oh yeah.
It's freemium. Joe came
Freemium.
up with that word.
I remember that. Yeah, the freemium stuff.
Yeah.
Joe, did you ever listen to the interview that I did with Dominguez and Volker? It's like 2.5 hours long. And
No,
I
where?
tell some great it's on Spotify. A guy named I can send it to you. It's a guy named
Okay.
I can't think of his name right now. He's a guy, he builds ramps at Woodward, and we sat down. We were at
Was that Nate
Woodward.
Wessel?
Yeah, Nate Wessel.
No, it's not Nate. No, it was what's his name? I can't think of his name right now. John something. John.
Hova?
Well, just send it to us,
No,
Ray,
no.
because we want. Yeah,
I
we
sent
want
it to you, Dave, a long time ago. I sent it to you in a text message when you guys were going to Walmart to buy sheets. I sent it to you that night when you called me one time.
When I was buying
But-
sheep.
Oh, right. When you were over here. When
Yeah.
we went out.
But anyway,
we went
I-
out to Target to get the bedding stuff.
I
you stayed
tell
over
these
here.
stories. I tell these stories, and they're in detail. Like I tell the whole Spike Jones story, which I know you would love.
Let freedom
the
ring.
whole, yeah. There's that story, but it's like in detail, and then Then I do one where I met Mike Dominguez for the first time at Ohio in 1986, and there's a whole and he's there when I'm telling the story. Dave's falling asleep. So I tell that story, and then maybe one other. Oh, of course, the microwave story. But they're all like in detail because it's just like the dudes just like tell us some stories, and for like 2.5 hours, I'm just babbling, and Volker's there, and we're just going back and forth, and it's just really funny. You know what I mean?
Just
But
send
it
it to
is. I mean, you got to be like driving in the car or something, like, because it's very long. It's not edited, and it's just like, you know, I'm picking on Xavier a bunch. Dominguez is there. Oh, we tell a couple Dominguez stories. We're just real silly. We may have been a little inebriated too. I don't even drink really, and I was like a little hammered on whiskey. So my liquid personality is phenomenal. Like my liquid personality. Like like some people when they get drunk, they their real personality comes out, and they might be a real jerk, or they just might be real. Some people drink and they get real quiet. Well, I get a couple drinks in me, and my foot's on the gas. You can't shut me up. but I'm good at it. Like I can. My brain is moving. I don't drink that much though these days.
All right, guys.
But anyway, I
here
think it's
often.
something you get a kick out of.
All
it.
right.
Dave's
I'm gonna check it
got to
out.
go.
I got to go.
Dave,
I got
yeah.
up really early this morning. I got up at 5 to take my dad to dialysis. So,
Oh,
I'm doing it. And I
the
got to,
kidneys.
yeah, I got to get some more food for Nick. So, but cool. This was an awesome
right.
show.
Way to bring it down sad again like last time.
Yeah.
We were doing good, and then Dave starts hitting us with all the personal sad stuff. Man, you can't do that to us, man. Now I'm gonna be bummed out. Dave's. I like to see you leave happy, man. You have a little downness to you because you're, it is a rough thing you're doing. So
Yeah.
tell-
Okay. Well,
tell us something happy.
Joe, I don't know. What can we do to perk up this?
Well, it
Tell a
should
story.
be very uplifting to you that you have two people on the line who deeply want you to feel better and
Yes.
have world-class skills at making people feel better.
Well,
So
yeah.
to be continued.
Yeah, and I think too, just leaving on a fun note, when I came to, you're only 5 hours from me right now, Joe, and I'm like tempted to drive that again, even though it's bitter cold, so I'm not as inspired. But that
is
time that I
cold.
came and we did our session together was epic.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's a good note for me to leave on.
So when the time is right, again, give me a couple of weeks heads up so that I can arrange my schedule.
2 weeks?
I am,
What could you
Well,
possibly have to do?
I'm
Sweep the floors and
arranging.
find some incense? Come on, dude.
No, it's arranging my calendar with Angie because
What's Angie do
it's
all day?
it's either
What's she gotta
Dave
do?
or Angie.
Angie-
Well, no, it's I missed.
How great
like,
would it be if I make that list? Like, I gotta call Ray first to see what's going on. Wouldn't that be something?
Oh my God!
Could you imagine
not
if you were like,
Angie.
"Hey, wait a minute! Hey, wait a minute! I gotta call Ray and find out what's going on."
I
What
gotta
is
check. I got.
Yeah, and then I'll let you know.
All right.
Gary's
this
calling
is-
me right
this is-
now.
This is the perfect time to wrap up. All right. On that note, thank you guys for
I think
tuning
Angie
in
can-
to Factor Freestyle. And
Yes.
this has been a life-changing moment. So go
Life-changing, life-affirming moment.
go make dopeness.
There you
See
go.
you
Peace
guys.
out.
See you around.
Thanks, you guys.
All right.